Welcome to the Chain Podcast. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Nashay Naeve to explore her inspiring career and her journey through manufacturing and leadership. Nashay is currently the president of the Engineered Plastic Components Business Unit at Tsubaki Nakashima. They're a multinational leader in precision industrial components. Nashay's experience in global business management has sharpened her expertise in project management, P&L development, as well as demand planning. Today, we're going to have to take a look at some of the insights on how manufacturing organizations can invest in their workforce through upskilling and reskilling. We'll also dive into some of the sustainability trends shaping our industry and offer some advice for some of the professionals looking to advance their careers. Nashay, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Abe.
Looking forward to this. It's you've had quite a journey in terms of your career. You've had a number of roles as you lead the business unit today. Can you think back on a couple of maybe 2 to 3 key decision points in your career that led you to the leadership philosophy that you work with today?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share some. So there are 2, I would say, experience, less about the decision inflection point, but more about the experiences that really shaped the way I lead today. The first one is actually when I lived abroad. So I lived in China for several years. What shaped my career or helped influence the way I lead today is really understanding how language itself can change the way that we learn and think. And I'll give you one example. So there's a Chinese word called weiji. There's 2 characters in that word. The first word can mean danger, and the second means opportunity. So when you combine it, weiji means crisis, but separated, it means danger and opportunity. So that really taught me that we really need kind of a tailored approach to leading global businesses. The second is having experience working in a startup as well as a traditional company. So I've worked primarily in large multinationals, but also had the opportunity to work in a startup. And the way that influenced my career is strong business leadership really requires a lot of strong processes, but it also requires us to be flexible to, the changing conditions of the world today. And the other thing is, in order to be flexible and make decisions, we need to empower our teams because I can't be there to make every decision. So that's really influenced the way I try to empower my teams, enable them to make decisions so that we as a team can move more quickly and be held accountable.
Are there different capabilities that you found that are specific to any region, or what's different across the globe that you're finding? What's consistent and what are you finding different?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain cases where the outside influence really changes the way the teams think. For example, I lead a team in Mirandola, Italy, and Mirandola is the biomedical district of Italy. So that really brings a lot of that medical mindset where we don't always have in specific cities in the United States, as an example. So we see some of that influence the way that the teams work.
Really interesting initially when you talk about the ecosystem and the talent necessary, to provide, not only your, the committed, supply chain professionals, but your vendors and your suppliers that surround your organization. I'm sure that you're finding technology does help in the integration of all these disparate teams.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, technology is essential to our work today.
When you talk about tech and talent and the integration of those two, are you evaluating new tools? I'm sure everybody is, thinking AI is going to revolutionize everything that we do here. But obviously, you need to evaluate how that technology, not only influences but enables your talent to obviously work much more efficiently. When you take a look at the talent and the people, how do you capture productivity gains that the technology provides versus some of the other influences or investments that you're making?
Yeah, some of the productivity gains that we see, I mean, a lot of times we eventually see it on the P&L, but it might not be evident immediately. So we try to look for some of the initial KPIs like productivity that we're seeing on the day-to-day level, and then ultimately how it rolls up on the annual productivity metrics as well. Scrap rates, as an example, is something else that we monitor. But it's a little bit can be tailored to the specific technology that we're implementing at the time. As an example, some quality control technologies might have a more direct impact on the scrap rate versus other technologies that we're using.
Not surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of organizations invest significant amount of money in digital transformation, and we're trying to take a look at that commensurate investment in the talent side for the organizations. When you take a look at the talent side and the technology, what do you see as the biggest skills gap today in the workforce in the digital investment that you're making right now?
Transparently speaking, I think we have opportunities to look internally and understand where exactly the gaps are. Sometimes I find myself trying to move too fast and not really wanting to wait for the team to catch up. So that's one of my personal development opportunities. But one of the things as we introduce new tools, I try to do is start with small wins, really looking at tangible areas that we can see and feel, such as manual data entry or consolidation. And then going back to this particular skills gap, there's kind of a healthy friction with managing the details versus the larger picture. So it can be a little bit challenging sometimes when we're looking at the data in really discrete terms and translating that to the bigger picture. Specifically in operations, a lot of our operators today are a little bit reactive because we're giving them information after something happens and then they're interpreting um, and adjusting from there. Whereas in the future, we really want operators to be able to interpret live dashboards and make decisions before the problems arise. Another one is we a lot of times rely on our supervisors based on their tribal knowledge. And in the future, we want our teams to make more decisions based on statistical trends. And then last, we're collecting a lot of data, but I would say it's a little bit underutilized at the moment. So in the future, I really expect our frontline operators to be using the data in every day to help influence and make decisions.
And no doubt the quality of the data and the availability of the data drives a lot of the key to your planning and your forecasting. As you take a look at, sort of as you indicated before, in terms of developing the talent and using the technology, do you see common mistakes that sometimes leaders make unintentionally with new staff in terms of the technology? Is there a gap between what we're expecting out of these individuals and what they bring to the table?
Well, some of the gaps that I see happening from leaders like myself is trying to do things the way we always have, because everything is changing at such a rapid pace, and sometimes we really try to force a solution that really doesn't work with the structure or technology that we have in place today. Another area that I find common, like a common mistake that leaders make, is shutting down ideas too early. Sometimes we think, oh, we've already tried that, so we really don't need to go down that path. I encountered this recently where we took a second look at a problem. We looked at what were the assumptions that we had in place at that time. Technology has changed so significantly, and maybe the barriers like the ROI at the time didn't make financial sense, where today it's a no-brainer. We would just do it. So I think revisiting some of those things that we maybe didn't make sense historically and are good ideas now.
It's interesting when you take a look in terms of some of the things that have worked in an organization, and you're trying to see, how do you drive efficiency? How do you reduce, cycle time? How do you, improve your, the inventory levels and everything else? As you're taking a look and you're evolving your demand planning, as you indicated before, the need for data, a reliable, accurate, timely information. How do you reduce the fire drills that were often imposed upon us by the news of the day or, the tariffs? We often knee jerk, oh, we need to increase inventory. We need to make specific decisions because of this. How do you reduce that knee jerk reaction and take a look at more of a long-term plan, especially in a volatile environment like today?
So it's ever evolving. But we try to manage a standard monthly process. So we have our standard SINOP that we follow. We also have touch points daily to make sure that we're tracking and if we do need to make shifts, it's not a huge shift. Maybe it's a slight pivot from where we were initially heading. And then getting ahead of it. So you mentioned earlier, the long-term plan is so important, but until we get a little bit closer, things will shift along the way. So we need to really have a North Star. We do an annual long-term planning process where we're looking out 5 years, evaluating what's our machine capacity going to look like based on our existing assumptions, and do we need to expand operations? Do we need to shrink some because demand is shifting away? But then always having kind of the monthly and daily touch points to adjust the plan as needed.
Really interesting to say you talk about long-term planning and short-term initiatives that obviously lead you towards achieving your long-term objectives. Sustainability falls into that sort of bucket in terms of what are we doing today, but keeping our eye on the long-term impact on our sustainability initiatives here. Within your experience on the sustainability initiatives, are they more compliance checklists, or are you seeing them becoming a strategic initiative or a differentiator for your organization?
I think it can be a differentiator, and in some cases, it's really how you apply the initiatives. For me, when I look at where I can drive value through sustainability, I look at our place in the value chain. So we're a B2B company. Many cases, we're supplying to an OEM. So I look at three layers. The first is regulation. So regulation, everyone has to do it. Everyone is going to comply. So if we're one of the first movers or we're able to do it better, faster, cheaper than other suppliers, then we can drive value through that area. The second is the OEMs, of course. They again are driven usually by the customers, but sometimes by their own internal initiatives as well. So trying to understand what for them is a real driver and how can we show our value to the OEMs. And then the last is the customers. So who are your customers? Where are they willing to pay? And who's really leading the effort? So some of the areas that we do plastic injection molding. Some of the areas that we're seeing and able to drive value through are offering recyclable plastics, especially in Europe, as an example. They're really leading the front in recyclability for plastic components. And then even recycled plastics, so using plastics that have already been recycled again in our value chain.
Let me take a shift here, Nashay. You've had a lot of experiences in your career in terms of leadership and in terms of different environments. As you're, taking a look at it, what career advice would you offer to somebody coming into the industry today?
So the first is the digital tools. We have a lot more digital tools than we have historically. So if you're not using them in your current function, please take the time to really learn about what's out there, learn about what is the best practice and how can you use it. Maybe bring it to your own organization to start leveraging those digital tools that don't exist today. The second is understanding really the full end-to-end supply chain. So today is really dynamic. We need an adaptable mindset in our organizations today. The ability to understand each step from demand planning, logistics, production, ultimately how it impacts our financials is really important. I might recommend some of your listeners to take leadership in the SINOP process. That's a really great opportunity to get the whole gamut of end-to-end supply chain. And then the last would be crisis management. You mentioned earlier about the tariffs. We can't predict the next supply chain crisis. It could be the Suez Canal, COVID, but it's really important to, be able to change and adapt as a business. And so even if you have a customer crisis, jumping into those opportunities and taking leadership is going to be helpful and beneficial for the long run.
Really great foundational, sort of advice for individuals coming into the workforce. Let me dial it back a little bit for you. You entered the workforce, obviously, coming out of, a supply chain or an ops management focus for, your career. women entering the workforce today are significantly higher in terms of percentages than we've ever had. Our latest salary survey indicated that, in fact, women are out earning their male counterparts when they start, but that pay gap inverts the longer they stay in the industry. You've had experiences not only coming into the industry, and probably not a whole lot of women mentors that you had coming into the workforce. What advice would you give to women today coming into the workforce about mentoring, about, positioning themselves for leadership opportunities?
Yeah, mentorship is so important. I've had a number of mentors throughout my career, and just having a sounding board is many times really effective in helping you make sound decisions and honestly building your own confidence in making those decisions. So if you're new to the industry, I encourage you to take the opportunity to get a mentor, having somebody to connect with and build a sounding board. And then as you gain experience, really taking the opportunity to be a mentor for individuals that could use the same guidance is really helpful.
Obviously, the culture of the organization means a lot in terms of, are they giving the opportunities for the women? Are you giving leadership or new project management opportunities? So you need to match that investment that you make as an individual with the investment that the organization makes in you, and finding that right fit seems to have, you seem to have found that right fit, Nashay.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Well, thank you for joining us today. This is really helpful, not only for individuals entering the workforce, but how to maintain your competitive edge in today's environment, not only through technology, but through a lot of the initiatives that you provided for us today. Nashay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Abe.
All the best.